Well, now take down your fishing pole and meet me at the fishing hole. I can't think of a better way to pass the time of day.
RodMob. This is The Splash, your Northern California fishing podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Scott.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're coming at you from the RodMob Treehouse here in sunny but crisp Portola Valley. It's Monday, February 11th, 2013, and this is episode 44 of The Splash, your weekly Northern California fishing podcast. On today's show, we'll talk about hitting San Pablo Reservoir on the opening weekend.
The water's warming up in the bay and the Delta. Could be good news for stripers. We'll hear from the Soul Man and Captain Steve Talmadge about the fishing there.
North Coast rivers are producing some fine steelhead. We'll hit on those reports.
Plus, we hear from Chris Archuleo at Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching in Monterey. We'll talk about what's happening at Pyramid Lake. And, of course, update you on upcoming events here in Northern California.
But first, let's kick things off with the latest news. So, Sarah, what do you got?
Here's Sarah with the latest headlines.
Well, we saw a very disturbing story on BloodyDecks.com this week about red snapper being decimated in the Gulf of Mexico. There's a federal mandate to remove old oil and gas rigs, and the demolition activities are killing thousands of pounds of fish. Here's the report from Mobile, Alabama's Local 15 News.
These are federally mandated demolitions of old abandoned oil and gas rigs. They blow up about 3 a week in the Gulf, but they're destroying a lot more than just the rigs.
Good Lord. Yeah.
Show it to a scientist.
So as a scientist, I think it's abominable.
Show it to a charter boat captain.
It's a crying shame.
Thousands of pounds of dead red snapper. You may be surprised to find out who's sanctioning the killing.
And the federal government's the ones that are doing this.
It's a federal mandate to get rid of old, abandoned rigs in the Gulf of Mexico.
But this is happening all the time. It's happening over and over again.
The rigs are an eyesore, but underneath the surface, coral habitats that have been growing for decades.
Not only are we killing a lot of snapper, but we're also destroying their habitat.
Local 15 uncovered this video from one of the demolitions, showing the aftermath.
We're talking about the most valuable fish species in the Gulf of Mexico.
After just this one demolition, an estimated 10,000 pounds of dead fish, mostly red snapper.
That's a year's salary for a lot of people, and that's just going to waste.
At the same time, the feds have been protecting red snapper from overfishing, cutting the season shorter and shorter, and putting strict limits on the amount anglers can catch.
Don't fish the red snapper, yet they have this mandate that's blowing them up.
It's a hypocritical statement. That's all it is. It's just our government.
Captain Jason Domain used to work on rigs himself. It's not the first time he's seen these demolitions, but it's the first time he's seen it captured on video.
And a lot of it was hush-hush, unsaid, and unseen. Like, this is the first video that's being produced. Hopefully it shines a lot of light.
Now, we will keep digging into this story. The Coastal Conservation Association has told us they want a copy of this video. Right now, there's a lot of effort on Capitol Hill to stop these demolitions in the Gulf.
An unofficial lake record was set at New Melones on January 31st when Mel Caldwell caught and released a giant 8-pound, 8-ounce spotted bass. Because it was weighed on his own scale, it couldn't be considered for the record. But just last week, the official lake record for spotted bass was set. Mike Sanders caught and released an 8-pound, 3-ounce fish on Thursday, February 7th. The Associated Press reported this week on a new federal report that says removing 4 hydroelectric dams on the Klamath River in Oregon and California, a project aimed at restoring ecosystems, will produce a big increase in salmon harvests and boost farm revenues. The report is 400 pages long and was produced by federal scientists to help the Secretary of Interior evaluate whether going ahead with the $1 billion project is in the public interest. The project is planned for 2020 and would be the biggest dam removal in U.S. history. Dennis Lynch, program manager for the U.S. Geological Survey, oversaw the report, and he says, in the long run, all the salmon, steelhead, and lamprey benefit from dam removal, according to our analysis. The report notes that wild salmon runs have dropped more than 90% from the dams, overfishing, poor water quality, disease, and habitat loss. It said there was a moderate to high probability that removing the dams and restoring the environment would improve water quality, fish habitat, and reduce fish disease and toxic algae blooms. The project would also improve the ability of fish to cope with global warming by opening up more access to cold water. In the long term, it's expected that numbers of Chinook and coho salmon would increase by 80% because more than 420 miles of habitat would be opened up, areas that have been blocked by the dams since 1922. The AP News reports that overall, the benefits far outweigh the costs by as much as 47.6 to 1. The report estimates dam removal would increase commercial fishing harvests of Klamath Chinook 43% over the next 50 years for a value of $134.5 million. Sport and tribal harvests would increase. More irrigation for farms during drought years would produce economic benefits 1 out of every 10 years. That's $30 million of increased value over the next 50 years. And more water for wildlife refuges would produce more waterfowl, generating a $4.3 million boost from hunting. The project has been endorsed by the states of Oregon and California, dam owners, and 42 groups representing Indian tribes, salmon fishermen, farmers, and conservation groups. But the project's been stalled in Congress, where the House and Senate didn't take up legislation last year that would authorize the Secretary of Interior to proceed and appropriate up to $800 million for ecosystem restoration. The project management for the dam removal is hoping that with this important evaluation step complete, there will be a focus from Congress on the agreements this year. And not too long ago, we reported that the California Fish and Game Commission was reviewing a petition to consider great white sharks as an endangered species. On Wednesday, the commission moved forward with the candidacy, meaning that state protections are enacted immediately, in parallel with a year-long review to determine if the shark should go on to the California Endangered Species List. Scientists have not been able to get an accurate count of great white sharks worldwide, but this petition specified a subspecies that lives along the California coast. In a study 2 years ago done by UC Davis, Stanford's Hopkins Marine Station, and others, it was estimated the population is at around 220 sharks, though not much is known about these great whites' breeding and migration habits. Currently, the main threat to the sharks is incidental capture in fishing nets. Targeting white sharks is illegal, but there aren't any limits set right now on incidental catches. Some fishing groups are unhappy about the listing because they feel it could make things tough for local fishermen. The North County Times reported that the biggest impact will be to set gillnet fisheries in Southern California, which sometimes snag juvenile white sharks while bottom fishing for halibut. The commission voted unanimously to advance the candidacy of the great white shark, which is the first step toward listing the white shark as an endangered species. The year-long review is expected to result in more concrete population estimates and other data to inform the bigger decision on whether or not to list the great white as a California endangered species.
Stay on top of the latest fishing action. Subscribe to RodMob Podcasts on iTunes. It's free, and you'll always get the latest episodes.
And in other news, in the East Bay area, San Pablo Reservoir opened this weekend to fishing. And Scott, you were there on Saturday. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, growing up in the East Bay, I've always fished San Pablo and loved that place. And we tried to hit it last year for the opener and got rained out. So made another attempt this year. No rain, thankfully. Actually, there was a little rain on Friday, but I was out Saturday. It was a beautiful day out there. It was a little cold in the morning. It was 28 degrees when I got there at about 6:30 a.m. Small crowd getting in. Got my boat checked with no problems at all. Nice and smooth. Headed out and started the day trolling for a couple hours. Trolled through tons of fish on my fish finder. I threw everything at them but the kitchen sink and got no bites and decided to switch to bait and headed on over to some of the coves on the east side of the lake and hooked 6 fish. Even broke one off. I kept 3 that had swallowed the hook and they ended up in my smoker. The biggest one I got was 19 pounds. Excuse me, 19. That was a nice 19-incher. Got them on. I was first fishing the chartreuse rainbow power bait, and then I added a crawler to it. And the minute I added the crawler, it was like pow! It was game on, and the hookups came pretty quick after that. Didn't see tons and tons of fish being caught throughout the day, but there were people catching fish, especially over off of the cove I was in. Top Cove, I think it was, or Sandy Point Beach was where I saw the most action.
And you even ran into some rod mobbers out there.
Oh, yeah. It was cool when I was coming in. Ran into some guys and set them up with some decals and met some cool folks out there. It was flat and glassy all day. Love that place.
Sounds like an awesome day.
It was great.
Much better than the actual opener on Friday, I think.
Yeah, I posted pictures and made a little video too, so you can check it out on our Facebook page.
Awesome. Well, that's it for the headlines. Now for some tight lines. Here are the latest reports on the best Northern California fishing.
Wait a second. That's not all the news. We need to announce the new RodMob hotline.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we ran into some technical difficulties with our old setup and our number, so we have a new and improved number. It's 855-RodMob1.
You know, we read all the reports from you guys every week, but we think it's so much better when we can hear your voices on the show and have you be part of the podcast with us.
Yeah, you guys got to call in and leave your reports so we can play them on the show. So we're looking for you guys to call in your reports. We've got it all set up. All you got to do is just call and leave us a message. The RodMob hotline, it's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so you can call anytime. Whether you're on the water, you just caught the fish, or you're on the couch, or you just got home from your trip, let us know how you did.
And if you're shy or worried about messing up, don't worry. We'll edit the audio and make sure you sound good.
So next time you're out on the water, be sure to call and leave a message on the RodMob hotline, 855-RodMob1. And put it in your speed dial, 855-RodMob1. Do it now.
All right, let's get into this week's reports. Starting with saltwater, crab and dab trips continue on the North Coast, and fingers are crossed for the squid to show up. In Bodega Bay, the new sea angler took 2 trips for crabs on Saturday and reported a total of 22 limits. Rick Powers told USA Fishing that the quality of the crabs really surprised him, mostly commercial grade, solid 6.5 to 7.5 inch crabs to go with just a few sporties in the mix. Rick is planning to continue running crab-only and crab and dab trips weekly until salmon season kicks off. The Hoolie Cat out of Half Moon Bay continues crab and dab combos. Surf perch are taking pile worms off Muscle Rock, Pacifica, San Gregorio, and south of town. And crab and dab trips continue to be the norm in Santa Cruz. Stagnaros has been reporting excellent sand dab fishing. Perch fishing has been pretty good from the jetties at the Santa Cruz Harbor for folks using bait, artificial sandworms, or grubs. And there are still some stripers being caught now and then near the Pajaro and Salinas rivers. Pretty much the same story in Monterey, where Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching has been reporting lots of sand dabs and limits of dungees each day they've been out. They had a great day out today with limits of crab for 9 anglers on the Checkmate. Yesterday was limits for 12 anglers on the Checkmate and 10 anglers on the Caroline. Here's what Chris Archuleo had to tell us this week.
There's lots and lots and lots and lots of sand dabs and lots of crabs. That's what we're doing. So we've been catching 30, 40 sand dabs per person, and we're also catching limits of crabs, which is 6 per person too. So, but that's all we're allowed to fish for right now.
If you want to get in on some of that action, give Chris's Fishing and Whale Watching a call at 831-375-5951.
Perch, jack smelt, and flounder are being caught by shore anglers throughout the San Francisco Bay. San Pablo Bay continues to see some sturgeon action, and the stripers are starting to make an appearance too. The outgoing tides have seen the best action. And here's an update from Captain Don Franklin, the Soul Man.
Yeah, we went out fishing Monday. Fishing wasn't bad. We targeted sharks and sturgeon. We landed 3 really nice leopard sharks, big males, so we did keep them. I'd say our biggest fish was close to 20 pounds. Put up great fight, little shallow water off of the Oakland airport. Then we turned our attention to Mr. Sturgeon. We did mark them a little bit more in the deep, going towards Oyster Point. We hooked one, had him on for a second, came out of the water, jump, rolled, and then spit the hook, lost the fish. And that was it. I would say this, there's a lot of herring down in the South Bay. You saw the commercial boats working. And if you don't have any herring, you're probably not going to get any action. But I think there are a few more sturgeon to be had. We'll be back out for this upcoming weekend. I've got room on Friday, and we have a shark trip already on the books for Monday coming up for the holiday weekend.
To reach Soulman, check out www.soulmanfishing.com or call 703-4148.
The water temp is lingering around 50 degrees in the Delta, and this week's warmer weather should turn the bite on. Striper reports are growing. Anglers got limits in Cache Slough and around Rio Vista. A lot of pan-sized flounders are being caught in Martinez. The black bass and crappie are active in Frank's Tract and off of Discovery Bay. Good sturgeon fishing continues in the Delta, too. RodMobber Jonathan Politis posted a nice report to our Facebook page yesterday. Jonathan says, got on the water by 7:30 and had a 10-minute face-freezing boat ride into Cache Slough, where we baited up our piles, eel, ghost, and roe. Only took another 10 minutes before I hooked into this fish that went for my offering of ghost shrimp. Made sure I kept the pressure on with my first hookup on the barbless. Got it in, and it turned out to be a 54-inch keeper, which I released. Those new Gamakatsu big river bait hooks held that fish on excellent. RodMobber Charles Johnson was also out this weekend and reported that he caught a few shaker stripers, one keeper at 20 inches, and some starry flounder.
And we heard from Captain Steve Talmadge of Flash Sport Fishing today, reporting in on his weekend.
Yeah, it's Captain Steve Talmadge from Flash Sport Fishing. Giving a report from the Sassoon Bay area. We've been fishing sturgeon since November, and so far this last weekend has got to be one of the best weekends we've had. Water temperature came up to 52 degrees. There's been a lot of fish in our system, I'd say above average as far as the amount of fish in our system. Weather couldn't have been better. Both days we were barbecuing on the boat. My crews were having a blast, and we had a lot of action. The sturgeon bite was pretty consistent through most of the day. First day, Saturday, we hooked 14 sturgeon. I think there was like 4 bass, all were shakers, and 2 flounder shakers. As far as the sturgeon goes, we had one good keeper that was 52 at the fork, I think 59 at the tip. Fish was pushing 60 pounds, had some caviar in it. The guy was very happy. It was his first sturgeon he ever caught, and he got to go process some caviar. We lost 2 other sturgeon. One rolled on the line enough to fray it and break off. The other one, the guy pulled a hook, but it loaded up the rods very good, so they were good quality fish. And the rest were shakers. One jumbo shaker that was close. Sunday, pretty much the same game plan over by the Mothball Fleet, Buoy 4, and up to Buoy 9 for the incoming tide, and then down to Buoy 4 for the outgoing tide. And we hooked 11 sturgeon, I think 3 or 4 bass. One bass was a keeper, 20-inch bass, and then a couple flounder we released. As far as the sturgeon goes, we had one good keeper again, nice one. It was 54, I think 54 at the fork and 60 at the tip of the tail. And this one also had caviar. Another guy was just ecstatic. He was way overdue. He fishes with me a lot. It's been about a year or more than he's got a keeper sturgeon, so he was so excited. And we had one other jumbo shaker that was close, and the rest were small shakers. Bait by far has been straight grass shrimp. First day on Saturday, I had a mixture of baits out there kind of testing the waters, and everything was chomping grass shrimp. We eventually switched over. And on Sunday, all I fished was straight grass shrimp, nothing else on the hooks. Very good. Weather, with the weather, the water temperature will even come up a little bit more, so I anticipate the next week or two is going to be pretty darn good. There's some good action.
For more information and to book a trip with Captain Steve on the Flash, go to www.flashfishing.net or call 510-881-0858.
We want to hear from you. Got a fishing report, a tip, a review, a comment on the show? Drop us a message on the RodMob hotline. Then listen for it on an upcoming episode.
Now let's look at the lakes. The bass bite is good on Shasta Lake. Fish are hanging out anywhere from the surface down to 45 or 50 feet. Shasta 24/7 says that bank fishermen should be happy since the bass are in close, with the best bite along rocky outcroppings and points. Using spinnerbaits, rip baits, and jigs should be the most effective. Bass are biting on shad and also crayfish, so brown color lures are producing. In murky areas with lower visibility, try spinnerbaits that vibrate or make some noise to get the fish's attention, since bass will come to the surface looking for cleaner water. Trout fishing is good too. Shasta 24/7 says hungry fish are near the surface in the main body of the lake, but will chase bait fish as deep as 40 feet. There have been good reports using humdingers, white hoochies, and small chrome spoons. Best bets are in the coves off the main body, on Dry Creek west of Shasta Dam, around the buoys near Bridge Bay, and under the I-5 bridge.
NorCal Fishing News has Lewiston Lake on its hot list this week, saying trout are so thick from Frog Rock to the dam, one can walk on them. If you're fishing from the shore, try casting night crawlers with marshmallows. That's been producing limits. Blue Lake's been getting stocked and the folks are getting their limits of trout out there. The bite is gradually improving at Clear Lake. The water temp is still a little cold. The north of the lake is producing some bass using A-rigs, LV500s, and larger swim baits or live minnows. And bass and trout have been on the bite at Lake Berryessa. Folks have been catching smallmouth and largemouth bass in the canyons on crankbaits, jigging spoons, and on plastic and natural colors. And we've been hearing that trolling for trout has been good in the Skiers Cove area. RodMobber John Politis sent us in a report on Thursday. John says, so we went after trout today, had hot action the first hour, then a fish here and a fish there throughout the day. We would have had limits, but we lost a bunch more during the battle. Got them with bobbers, got them without bobbers. All on large minnows, they weren't too picky today.
At Lake Oroville, last weekend, Gary Dobbins of Yuba City took first place in the Western Outdoor News Bass Pro-Am Tournament with a total weight of 29.05 pounds. His biggest fish weighed in at 4.39 pounds. Western Outdoor News reports the key has been fishing slow, and jigs, plastic worms, and reaction baits have all been working well lately. Bass fishing at Folsom Lake is picking up with the warmer weather. Trout and king salmon are active too. Some bass are being found off the peninsula, brush piles, and rocky points. The salmon are deep, and trout are being taken from the shore on power bait and worms. Anglers at Collins Lake are catching 2 to 4 fish a rod to 7 pounds from the dam, beach, and open area. Boaters have been picking up some fish on Rapalas, but most were drifting bait on the east side. Some recent big fish at Collins Lake were a 7-pound, 1-ounce rainbow caught by Juan Arrego, and Javier and Ricardo Lopez scored a 5- and a 6-pounder using power bait on the east side of the dam.
In the East Bay, there's good action at Contra Loma lately. RodMobber Carlos Padilla posted in on Thursday. The water is low but filling up nicely, and the reservoir was scheduled to have 2 more trout plants this week. Carlos posted nice pictures of trout he caught on power bait and 3/4-inch slider sinker. A 7-pounder was caught last week. Weekly plants continue at San Pablo Reservoir, and there's a lot of fish. Some folks reported the opener was a little slow and the water was pretty murky. RodMobber Frank Williams posted a picture of his buddy Dana who caught a nice trout just under 5 pounds on opening day. Mike Huggins reported that they were out Saturday and set up on the bank by the launch. It was a slow day for them. A garlic power bait and crawler combo is what brought in the one fish they caught. I had better luck across the lake off Sandy Point. Round Top Cove was where I got the biggest fish and the more feisty fish at the end of the day. So far, the biggest fish we've heard of was a 5-pound trout caught at the main rec area by Jay Gamboa.
More trout are coming to Lafayette Reservoir next week, and hopefully that will pick the bite up there. Fishing is better in the south of the lake, but things could be better. Los Vaqueros Reservoir got a trout plant last week and is scheduled for another one this week. Last weekend, an angler fishing from the shore in Cowboy Cove reeled in an impressive limit of trout, including fish weighing 7.2, 6.5, and 6.2 pounds. There's a good trout bite at Lake Del Valle. Anglers are getting into a couple of fish per rod off East Beach and Heron Bay. And Quarry Lake's trout are starting to cooperate. We saw some good reports from the Swim Beach and Peninsula areas.
And in the Motherlode area, weekly trout plants continue at New Melones. Bait has been catching more trout than lures. Last week, Tim Washington of Jamestown caught a beautiful 4-pound, 10-ounce rainbow on a night crawler while bank fishing upriver. And of course, the official New Melones Lake Spotted Bass record was caught and released by Mike Saunders on Thursday, an 8-pound, 3-ounce monster. So there's some big bass out there too. Lake Amador continues to plant big trout weekly. These are bonus plants of trout over 10 pounds. A 16-pounder was caught last week, and the bite has been great throughout the lake with dough baits and spoons. Lake Amador store says fish are also being caught on garlic power bait, garlic power eggs, and white grubs.
Lake Pardee is opening to fishing this Friday, and they've been planting tons of trout. And it sounds like last week was a slow one at Lake Comanche, although we did hear some reports of some action in the Narrows on grubs, rainbow and chartreuse power baits, and crawlers and power eggs. It should pick up a bit with today's plant. 1,200 pounds of trout were delivered today by Mount Lassen Trout. 600 pounds went in at the North Shore Ramp and 600 pounds at the South Shore Pond.
In the Sierras, great reports are still coming from beautiful Lake Tahoe. Dodgers and minnows deep are getting limits of max. You'll need to get your boat inspected for mussels, so make sure your boat is dry, your plugs are out, and you trim down your motor to make sure it's all drained out. Part 1 of the 26th annual Crosby Lodge President's Day Derby at Pyramid Lake was this weekend. We got an update from Valerie at the lodge that the wind made for some tough fishing, but it settled down in the afternoon. The big fish so far is a 17-pounder caught by Robert Jacobson from the shore. A 13-pounder and a 10-pounder were entered by anglers fishing from boats. 3 9-pounders and 5 7-pounders, among others, have been entered so far. We'll be out there next weekend for part 2 to get some hands-on reports, pics, and videos. So stay tuned.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/RodMob.
On the rivers, it's all about the North Coast steel. Kenny Priest reports in Fishing the North Coast that ocean-bright steelhead are still pouring into most of the rivers. As we roll into February, the little push of water should bring in more fresh fish from the ocean, as well as start to move some of the downers toward the sea. The Klamath River is now fishable throughout, and the best action has been on side-drifted crawlers and roe, spinners, and back-trolled plugs. Good reports of some big steelies continue from the Smith River. Boats are averaging 6 fish a day. Last Tuesday, the biggest steelhead of the season, a 36.5-inch hen, was caught on a shrimp pink, yarn-tipped pink fish pill. Lots of bright steelies on the Trinity River, and the fishing is good around Junction and Douglas City. And the American River is still hot for steelies. Last week, the flows were at 2,300 CFS. Roe and Little Cleos have been top offerings.
The Russian River has been a hot spot for steelhead, too. NorCal Fishing Adventures posted some pictures on our Facebook page of some wild steelhead they've been catching and releasing lately on the Russian River. Some good-looking, bright fish. Better weather on the Truckee River has improved access on the California side around Hirschdale on down. Better reports are coming from the Nevada side. Try midge patterns and BWOs. And in the eastern Sierras, Sierra Drifters Guide Service posted a report yesterday after fishing the lower Owens River. It was windy and there were higher flows. Overall, the upper Owens River continues to be the place for trophy-sized rainbows.
Woo! Fish! Woo! All right!
Catch of the Week.
This week, our podcast album artwork is courtesy of Bill Singleton. Bill posted a great picture on our Facebook page of his 10-year-old son holding up his first steelhead of the year, a 20-pound toad caught on the Chetco River. Way to go, guys, and congrats on having this week's
Catch of the Week.
Do you have a great catch to share? Just post it to our Facebook page or email it to us at fishon@rodmob.com.
And now for our poll question.
Last week, we asked about boat inspections at local lakes. We've been hearing some chatter, people complaining about being turned away or having issues with boat inspectors. So we asked, have you ever been turned away at a boat inspection? Well, it was a unanimous vote. 100% said, no, I haven't been turned away or had a hassle with the inspectors. You had a boat inspection this week at San Pablo. How did that go?
It was painless and painless.
So don't know what any of these...
No problems, but I made sure I didn't give them anything to hassle me about.
Well, good.
I make sure I pull my plugs. There's no standing water anywhere. My boat is dry. You got to trim down your motor because they will do that. So make sure there's no water stored in there, and you'll be good to go.
All right. Well, now for this week's poll question.
So this weekend out at San Pablo, I brought out some little spinning combos that I had spooled up with braided line a while back, and I was struggling all day with bad line memory, and the line kept slipping when I tried to set the hook. The braided line I had on my trolling rods is much more cooperative, but on the little spinning rigs, the braided line was just a pain in the butt. So our question this week is, what type of line do you think is better for lighter spinning setups? We want to know. Head on over to rodmob.com to cast your vote.
Upcoming events you won't want to miss. Here's the RodMob calendar.
This weekend, February 16th and 17th, is the second weekend for the 26th annual Crosby Lodge President's Day Derby at Pyramid Lake. And Scott will be there handing out some decals and covering the Derby, so stay tuned. We'll report on that on the next podcast.
Dates have been announced for the 31st annual Chopper and Hank Westbrook Steelhead Derbies. The Chopper Derby will run February 21st through the 23rd. And the Hank Raider Derby will be held on March 8th through the 10th. For more information and entry forms, visit rowdycreek.com/derby or call 707-954-2260.
And on February 22nd through the 24th, the Fly Fishing Show returns to the Pleasanton Fairgrounds. We'll be there. Hope to see you.
February 23rd, the California Striped Bass Association's 4th annual Crab and Pasta Feed is at Brentwood Veterans Memorial Building in Brentwood, 925-754-3938.
February 24th, the 2013 Stockton Bass Open Team Tournaments kick off on the Delta. All events will take place at Ladd's Marina in Stockton.
Wednesday, February 27th, the official fly fishing tour stops in California at the Fox Theater in Redwood City.
For details on these and other upcoming events, check out our events page at rodmob.com. And if you have an event you'd like us to mention, just drop us a line at fishon@rodmob.com.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to stay in touch with us during the week on our Facebook page. We post all kinds of pictures and updates there between podcasts. And please give us a holler on the all-new RodMob hotline, 855-RodMob1, and leave us a report, and we'll play it on the show. And for sharing a report, we'll send you a free weather-resistant decal so you can help rep the mob on your car, truck, or boat.
If you've got feedback or suggestions from the podcast, we want to hear from you. Just drop us a line at fishon@rodmob.com. And please help spread the word and tell all your fishing friends about the RodMob. And subscribe to us on iTunes. Or if you've got an Android phone, you can download the Stitcher Smart Radio app for free and then add us to your favorites.
Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep us posted. 855-RodMob1.
RodMob.